Pat Chun, the athletic director at Florida Atlantic. Pat, you're on inside the locker room with Wimp Sanderson and Barry Sanderson. We're both former college basketball coaches, but we think we know. How you doing, Pat?
Morning. Should I just call Wimp coach and you Barry, or call you coach?
You call him coach. Whatever you want. Pat, before we get into the Lane Kiffin stuff, tell our listeners about Florida Atlantic. I've been to Boca Raton. I wish we could do this interview in person. We could come down there and see you. But tell our listeners about your university.
Well, we're about 30,000 students. We're located in Boca Raton. The temperature today coming into work was 70 degrees. It's really a vacation beach community. With a university, public university that's really trying to be more residential, and the strategy has always been through sports, specifically football. But in the most recent state metrics, we were the #1 rated academic school in the state. We have a wonderful president whose background is at Clemson and Ohio State, like myself. So we believe we have a pretty good understanding of what it takes to build a football program here. And obviously, the one thing that has been successful here is the guy who started our program was an offensive coordinator for Bear Bryant. So we figured might as well go back to the well and say, let's go get the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban and see if that works for FAU again.
Yep, Dad.
Well, I knew Howard Snowdenberger a long time. I've worked with him for years at Alabama. And what I'd like to ask you, I know that in all schools, not just yours, all schools, money's a real factor. Do you play 1 or 2 games a year where you draw big money? Say, I think you're playing Ohio State. Is that every year that you play a couple?
No, for the next 4 years, we used to do 2 guaranteed games. And that was a decision that predated me. Oh, and you know this firsthand, Coach. You got to schedule success, and anytime you do that, I don't know if I'm one who doesn't see what the value is in doing it, but I get it. There's it's a guarantee financially. We'll go to a 1 guarantee model starting next year, where I think we go. We'll have Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and I think Ohio State in back-to-back years. Okay. But then after that, our president wants to really try to schedule success, and then at that point, we'll just do home and home to schools and see where we land. But part of college football, look at Alabama. They don't. I would guess that there wasn't 1 game that they were scheduled in which they were not favored this year.
Sure.
So if you're ever going to get to a play, Ohio State does the same thing. They don't play a game in which they're not favored. So for us to put ourselves in a winning situation, we got to schedule better, and I'm fortunate to have a president that agrees with that same philosophy.
Good point. Barry.
We're talking with Pat Chun, the athletic director at Florida Atlantic. Pat, take us back how Lane Kiffin was hired. When did you guys first make contact? Obviously, he's done a terrific job here at Alabama. He's 39-3, which I know you know all the numbers because you were looking at him. 39-3 as the offensive coordinator. But just kind of tell us how that process went down, when you guys first made contact with each other, and then eventually how you got it done.
Well, we made the decision with our coach probably during midweek of the final week of the season, and Sunday, the 27th of November, the day after our season, I just informed him that we were going to make a move. So once we made that decision, then the next obvious question is, how are you going to fix this football program? What do we have to do? And in our league, in Conference USA, and I would even theorize that in all a group of 5. This is really an offensive game, and I think it stems from the inability just to successfully recruit quality defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen specifically, because they just go to the bigger schools. So I think at best you can have an average defense, especially in our league, but you got to have an offense that scores at least 30 to 35 points a game, which really leads you to, all right, who and for us, because our past head coach did an extraordinary job in terms of recruiting South Florida. We have high-character kids. We have kids that are committed to academics. We have a great locker room. We just were one of those schools that couldn't get out of their way on game day. So we wanted someone that had head coaching experience. We wanted someone with expertise on the offensive side of the ball. With my roots, I actually talked to, Urban Meyer about, what's the magic behind these guys that call plays and coach quarterbacks and our head coaches. So, I asked the same question to Jim Kessel. So just trying to get a better feel of how do you profile and how do you find one of these guys? And part of the other thing I did is from an analytics standpoint, work with the company and just put some numbers together and try to figure out if we with this type of profile, who was the lowest risk for us? And oddly enough, one of the names that popped up was Lane Kiffin. So about a little over a week ago, I would say Tuesday, December 6th, we met for the first time in New York City. We had 2 3-hour meetings over the course of the next, I guess you'd say, 6 days. And the Lane that I spent time with was extremely humble. You could sense that what happened at USC had a profound impact on him. And I would venture to guess that, the 3 years with Coach Saban has, and he said the same thing, 3 years Coach Saban really kind of gave him a PhD in coaching. And I know from being around Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer that you see the impact, and, once you've probably had assistants that were head coaches. When you work for a head coach that's a master at their craft, you go in with the purpose of learning to be a head coach. You come out of that experience, really prepared and a real great understanding of what it takes to do on every single day as a head coach. So, I think we're a beneficiary that he has a tremendous resume for the age of 41. He's learned literally from, one of the 2 best coaches in college football. And I think the Lane Kiffin that we've gotten and that we're going to see is one that is going to make an immediate impact. He's going to really impact our student athletes in a positive way. And I think, look at day one. I think part of what I joke around with Lane, the Kiffin effect is all of a sudden everyone kind of knows who Florida Atlantic is, which also helps recruiting as well.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. Lane's going to get publicity wherever he goes. And I personally watched this entire press conference. I thought he knocked it out of the park. I thought he came across as a guy who has been humbled, made some mistakes, somebody who really wanted to be at Florida Atlantic. And so the exposure you guys have gotten from Lane Kiffin, you could never pay for something like that, could you? Patrick?
No, I told our president they don't sell advertising like that, and if they did, we couldn't afford it. And I agree with you. The Lane everyone saw in that press conference, the Lane that presented himself to us, and coaching at the end of the day, if you're going to be a championship coach and run a championship program, it's never about you. It's always got to be about the student athletes, and that was. And the good thing with Lane is when you spend 6 hours with him, we really did not talk football or X's and O's at all, because what's there to talk about? He's a genius. He's coached Heisman Trophy winners. He's changed offenses. There's nothing to talk about with football. It was all about him, where he's at, what he wants to do, what's his philosophy on student athletes, how is he going to make them better men, how is he going to impact our campus and our community, and that's where we spend the majority of our time talking about, and ultimately that's what won me over or won us over and why he should be our next head coach.
I think the recruiting aspect of it is so important and very expensive. There are a lot of players in South Florida, and I'm sure that, as you said, the former coach did a good job of getting good people. Is he able, and I know that he was going to go, he's already gone to a junior college and gotten a kid, but basically speaking, will South Florida be where if you feel like is the best area to divide his staff up and recruit that area?
Yeah, and let me clarify something. The junior college kid that DeAndre Johnson that committed to us, he was actually offered before Lane ever got here. So I feel this is part of, I guess, the Kiffin effect, where he had a horrific, inexcusable evening or decision that he made at Florida State. But the young man that I'd met with, and we had done really a month and a half worth of background checking and vetting. He really wants to come to campus and make a difference, and he's been doing that in his local community, and he's spoken at high school All-American games about violence prevention and abuse and making better decisions. So, the kid, someone asked me, does the kid deserve a second chance? Well, I don't know if that's my place to figure that out. All I know is we brought a kid here that wants to make a difference in our community. So from a recruiting standpoint, our bread and butter is going to be South Florida. The things that have worked well for us and probably a lot of schools down here, all of our skill players should probably come from Florida. We'll go out of state for a quarterback or an offensive lineman, but really all of our skill players should come within the state. There's so much good high school talent down there, and there's a reason why I mean, your coaches could have a satellite office down here during recruiting season because, I mean, there's probably no school that has better success of getting the top kids in South Florida and Alabama.
Yeah.
We're talking with Patrick Chun, athletic director at Florida Atlantic. Pat, as far as Lane Kiffin's duties now, was it ever even under consideration for him just to come to Florida Atlantic right now? Because there's so much work to do as far as hiring a staff, recruiting, or just staying in Alabama, finishing up and trying to do double duty. Just tell us about what Lane's responsibilities are now. Was it ever even under consideration for him to leave now?
No, he wants to finish the job at Alabama, and selfishly, we want him to finish the job at Alabama. It's great every time Lane's going to be on TV, and I'm one who thinks you guys are a lock to beat Washington and play for the national championship. But every time he's going to be on TV, they're going to be talking about Florida Atlantic University, and that's great for our institution. But it was one of those deals where I don't even know if we probably touched on it for literally 20 seconds because he wants to follow through on his commitment to Alabama. We wanted him to follow through on his commitment to Alabama, so it was really a non-discussion. When he left here, Wednesday night, jokingly I told him he's got to go back to his part-time job of trying to win a national championship for Alabama. So he's in a unique situation these next couple of weeks to get that done for the Crimson Tide.
Was any of the former staff kept over for Lane, or is he going to talk to any members of the former staff?
He's talked to the entire staff. I think that's the benefit of probably being in Barry, you probably understand this more than anyone, being a coach's kid or growing up around it. He's got a lot of empathy for coaches, and you could tell in the class and manner in which he spoke with all of our past staff. There's 2 or 3 of them that have been told, hey, stick around a little bit longer and let me figure out what we're going to do with the coordinators. I don't want to put our coordinator in a position where he feels like he has to take someone or, tell you got a job and all of a sudden philosophically you're not in alignment, with the coordinator. So, and he also told the other guys, he understands the business and, he doesn't want to string people along and, just use them for recruiting and then just tell them last minute, we don't need you anymore. So, I give him credit. He was very empathetic with all of our coaches. I think that's probably a byproduct of growing up in this business. And he lived firsthand the effect of moving around city to city as a coach's kid. So I know he's got a lot of empathy for families, but he handled it as professional and as tactful as you possibly can.
We've seen announcements that he's hired as offensive coordinator, Loxley. I don't know if that's official yet.
Sure
and maybe
correct,
his brother is a defense coordinator. Can you comment on that?
Well, I know his brother Chris is signed and sealed right now. He signed his contract last night. We're excited to get Chris here. I was able to spend some time with him. I was guessing that he was going to tell me they were going to run their family defense, the Tampa 2, and he said, no, we're going to run our base will probably be a 4-2-5. I was like, well, why don't you take your dad's defense and run it here? He's like, no, we're going to base it off the personnel we have. I was like, all right, good. That's like Lane wanted you. So so Chris got in last night. I know Lane's. We actually sent a staff member, our recruiting coordinator, to go up to. He's in Tuscaloosa now, so he's kind of just doing, any minute Lane has to just work on FAU. He's there just to take directions and get moving. So I know he's been talking to a lot of coaches, and I know he knows he has to move fast, but he's not going to move too quick. He wants to get the staff right. I think you guys seen it firsthand. A lot of these programs, no matter what the sport is, if you can't get that first staff as right as possible, it sets you back more than it puts you forward. And then he's very cognizant that he's got to get his first staff right here.
How many years of contract did Lane sign? Can you tell us that?
Oh yeah, it's a 5-year deal. There are buyouts in there that assume there's a great assumption. People ask me, what are you gonna do if he leaves after 1 or 2 years? And I say, you know what? One, that's a great sign that we hired a coach that everyone's worried that he's going to leave in 1 or 2 years. But as long, the goal here is for Lane to accomplish his goals as a head coach and impact our student athletes. And no matter how long that takes, and if it means he goes to a higher resource institution, I'll be the first to thank him and hug him goodbye because that means he accomplished his goals and did what he was supposed to do. But, like I said earlier, there's a sense that he's at peace with his career and he really wants to make a difference, and he understands that what this opportunity can be, and where this may take him. But he wants to make a difference here. He's excited that he's at a program where there isn't Phil Fulmer in the shadows. There's not Pete Carroll in the shadows. There's not Al Davis over his shoulders. Although hasn't worked, we've only worked a couple days together yet, so I might be worse than Al Davis. But he's happy to be in a place where he can wake up and he knows that he can accomplish things here that have never been accomplished before, and he's really motivated by that. I mean, I remember Wednesday morning I walked in this office and he basically looked at me and says, I haven't been this excited to sit in this chair in my entire career, and those are one of those moments when it's just me and him that there's no cameras in the room, there's no it's not like he's making that up. I mean, that's an honest emotion that he gave me, and I think we're excited for him to finish his duty strong in Alabama and get here and start molding our football program in his image and make us a bunch of champion young men.
All right, Patrick. I know you got to go. Last question, unless Des got one. This is going to be a hard question for you now. If Alabama wins and Ohio State wins, I know Ohio State's your alma mater. They may not be able to talk to you until that game's over. Who are you going to be pulling for, Pat?
It's deeper. My wife played softball at Ohio State. She's a graduate. My 3 daughters were literally born at the University Hospital. I got all my family graduated from Ohio State. My friends already texting me hate text messages that if I'm rooting for Alabama. So right now, I guess the only thing I can say is I hope Lane has the best night he can have that evening, and I'll leave it at that because I gotta watch my words. I still got to go home for Christmas. So once I get out of there after Christmas, then I can really make my true statements known.